And so we say, both need to be involved. What do participants need to know? So we say there's 4 things you need to know about your brain. One of them is the reward center. There's a part of your brain that is going to be driven to what you will or won't do. It also helps, for example, in my companies, when it's strategy, they don't move without me. When it's operations, they don't invite me. I'm disruptive and I'm incompetent. And I tell them very simply, you invite me and I'll change it even if it's working because I love change, because that's my reward center. But oh, by the way, you who don't like change, don't come to my strategy meeting because you're going to keep telling me what can't be done and I want to look at the possibility. Understanding our reward center is huge. You have to understand brain chemistry. We're going to talk about that in a minute. When I started doing this, I said maybe brain chemistry was a contributing factor. Today I'm going to tell you your brain chemistry is the major determinant of your behaviors. And you'll see that in just a minute. And then there's natural tendencies. Do you realize if you don't know that you've got natural tendencies? For example, I have high dopamine, which is the adrenaline chemical. And so what do I like for behaviors? I like Mountain Dew. I like lots of coffee. I like running a lot. I like Led Zeppelin. I like anything that cranks my dopamine. But what that does when I get home and I ask my wife, how was your day? And she starts to answer, I really don't care. And I'm not going to listen to you anyway, and if you ask me my opinion, I know I'm right. So it's not like what feels good is the best thing we go. And often, many of you eat because you're stressed. That's a natural tendency. So it's either driven by or it's caused by your self-medication. And so you can't change that. I can't change my behavior of being patient without changing my brain chemistry. But if I was self-medicating, I'd have to find a different medication or different form of medication. And then you need to know, sorry folks, we're no longer right brain, left brain. Research went out. There's 3 major areas: salience, what will I let in? Number 2, how will I interpret it? And number 3, a network on how I make the decision. And you need to know where they are all at. So, knowing your brain, I wouldn't be married today. I'll tell you that right now. If my wife and I didn't know each other's brain. I literally drive her nuts. And now she appreciates it's because that's the way I'm wired, and it's not me just being annoying. Even though I am annoying still. But now I have an excuse. What do agencies need to know? I hear people all the time say, well, we're a really good sheriff agency. And I said, who'd you compare yourself to? How do you know? So we do a thing that's called, we're going to talk about a gray zone for a second. This is something very important for you guys to understand. We are in a management gray zone where the current culture says it's got all of these procedures, boundaries. It's the baby boomers developed it and we're all using it still. And we're going somewhere that's got changing boundaries, changing, unclear, all of this. And we're here, right in the middle, don't know where it's going. We just know the old way isn't working, and we don't know what the new way is. So we're gray zone. And so living in the gray zone, what you need to know is what I call agency profile. How's your profile? Where's your agency? Are they good communicators? Do they have trouble accepting differences in others? Are they open? Are they creative? You compare it. And you compare it against your type of group. You look at it and you say, where's my gaps and strengths? And I'm going to show you an example. Are we going to be good to adapt to the future? Do I have the right people in the bus? You also need to know cultural thinking. What's changing with your Gen Zs? Where are they different? How do I understand them? Because one of the things I hate to tell you, you're not going to change them, and they're going to be here when you're gone. So if you think you're going to spend your time on changing them, good luck. They're not going to change. And your best thing is to teach them wisdom and let them lead. And generational thinking. How's each generation think? So, let's do a couple of things to kind of wrap it up. If I ask you, You're anxious and you go to a doctor, what do? Medication. Depressed, go to a doctor, medication. Can't sleep, medication. ADHD, medication. Number one, is Big Pharma make money? Yeah. But number two, why is that? Because it does something. And what we have to understand is this. Medication does not change behavior, it changes brain chemistry. The change in brain chemistry changes behavior. Antidepressants either change serotonin or norepinephrine. Anti-anxiety drugs change GABA. ADHD changes dopamine. But guess what? Other lifestyles, what you do, when you exercise, how often you exercise, what you eat, what you don't eat, also changes brain. Music you listen to. So if I knew that, I could prescribe activity, diet, music to change it. So here's a chemical that if it's in the middle, you're going to notice that a person is very balanced. But if it gets high, which is mine, you're going to find that all of a sudden you get listening skills drop, you get overreactive, you get anxious, and you may drink. But very important, I'm going to show you a slide. Anybody who's been in this business, and Al doesn't want me to use him as an example because he's been in 40 years, but 20 years or so, you probably are going to start showing signs of low dopamine. What's that mean? Joy's gone. Serotonin doesn't go high, but when it's low, what happens is you start looking at what can't be done. You start getting critical. You get critical on yourself. You start controlling. You may be perfectionistic. Acetylcholine, which is another interesting one, is the memory chemical that gets beat up. It's in the hippocampus. It affects BDNF, and it drops. So let's look at length of service in a study on about almost 1,800 first responders. You notice serotonin, which is internal conflict, depression, weight gain, perfectionism, remains relatively constant over, by the way, that top of years of service. If you look at dopamine, you're going to start noticing, wow, that's interesting because it's the low kind of joy. I refer to it as a good day is nothing negative happen. That's your goal. And you notice how you start depleting it. When you look at acetylcholine, which is a memory, you're going to notice that as it goes along, you feel like you're losing your edge. And then finally, one of the things that's interesting is GABA is associated that says I'm stressed, and dopamine is the stress chemical. And you're going to notice, very interesting, is that the younger group is the one that's more anxious. And I tend to say that's because us baby boomers are telling them what to do and they don't like it. But at any rate, there's a lot of anxiety that exists with the young people because they're new, they're young, and they're in a management system that isn't going to work for them. Are we effective at bringing about change? You know anything about healthcare? We're one of the few people that is being considered, and we're already approved in South Africa and Australia. The U.S. doesn't do preventative medicine, and they only have billing codes for sickness. But we've got two of the major organizations of healthcare looking at us saying, your stuff is legit with outcomes, we got to figure something out. And Al and I are working closely with Blue Cross Blue Shield to be able to figure this out. And I've got another organization. But these numbers are pretty significant. I'm going to show you something, blast through again. Remember I said the green bar here is where a person started. So that says all those things that NIH said. This is your risk factor. And if you look at it, the green horizontal bar below means I'm not going to get it. Green to the yellow means I'm at risk. Yellow to red means I'm at moderately high risk. This is our studies on over 6,000 people that shows how their risk factors dropped. We left the genetics in, we left the cards you dealt, we just said the choices you make decrease your risk. And you notice at 2 years it's still dropping. And then you look at health risks, you're talking about addiction and those, and you look at anxiety, which is super high, it's dropping. You look at performance, and you still see, I think we're a compulsive society, but we're dropping. Relationship risk, if I had to do anything, I'd want to change people's relationships. I just come from the standpoint that says we missed the boat. that relationships are probably the most important thing in your life, and your job tends to destroy them. And I look at this and I'm going, I really like that we're seeing an improvement. The big three, stress, came down. How do participants like it? We do 78 inhibitors. Inhibitors might be I have chest pain or I'm angry or whatever of the health performance relationship. At the end of a first year, 61% of those are improved. You have 83% will take the assessment after 2 years. Remember, we had to compete against 11%. At 2 years, we're still at 83. Why? You got your data. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about me. You're not talking about knowing about the brain doesn't matter. Knowing about my brain does. And you're going 88% of them developed a healthier lifestyle, 93% gained insight, and 85% would recommend it. What about cost savings? This is what's really interesting because I don't understand how you can't invest when you look, I'm not saying with us, but somebody that does this. If you take CDC's numbers, it will cost you $1,450 to have high blood pressure every year you have it. Not your company, you. Number one, you'll retire 6 months earlier than people without. So we took CDC's numbers, where the risk factors were, where it changed, and said, how much did we save the individual? The person who paid off their mortgage, got their 401k, but didn't take care of their health. So this is the cost of complacency. The cost of complacency for the average individual is $106,000. We, at this point, are saving them around $29,000. Let's take Kent County. Kent County, the percentage improvement on those inhibitors are shown, and relationships went up best. If you take CDC's and says how much does it cost in lost productivity and health care for an employer, these are the numbers. So we put that into a calculation that says how well did they do, what did the individual save, and what did the company save. And those are the numbers, and basically per person saved $1,448 in health care and lost productivity per person per year. And at 150 employees on this was almost $5 million savings and almost $4.7 million for the individual, which is a total of $9.7 million saved on 150 employees. Let's use a leadership. Something very important is that slide right there. You want to control the narrative that's talked about your county, use data. So Ottawa County, we did gaps and strengths. So as I mentioned to you, brains will go through, I think everything goes through, organizations, marriages, etc. We have a conceptualizing phase, we have an implementing, we have a stabilizing and an optimizing. Where does your team fall? So we took, and this is what we did with leadership, Ottawa County, and if you look at the chart, and everybody gets this chart, knows where they fall, am I more of a conceptualizer, more stabilizer, more optimizer, more implementer? I'm over in that left, right-hand conceptualizing, optimizing. I have no stabilization in me whatsoever. So here you go. There's the sheriff. There's the undersheriff. There's the deputy chief. There's the captains. There's the lieutenants. There's the director. There's the admin. Here's all of the patrol sergeants. Here's the correction sergeants. And there's the detectives. If that undersheriff would go, how strong is the creative conceptualizing in that team? Are they ready? Knowing where you plot is very important to know where you move people. And then what'd you learn from this example? You learned you can really gap it out and figure it out. I'm going to show you one more thing. Now this is using our most sophisticated inference logic based on AI. The bar down the middle is the average of, this is Kent County. The bars to the right mean that characteristic to the left is stronger in that population. If it's less, it's weaker. And if you notice this, you'll see, for example, one of the most significant thing there is look at the department heads at Kent County in vision, 1.45. They're 145% more creative than the average government executive team. But look at all their staff, except for circuit court. They're less. So they can cast the vision, but the people won't get it unless you go up above and say, I got to put a lot of detail and legs to how to get there because they won't understand or buy the vision. You look here and you say, who's going to resist change? Who has trouble accepting differences in others? And then you go, where's the stress affecting the performance? As you can see, this data gives you unbelievable amounts of information to know where to put your efforts into making changes. So changing people can be challenging. Last slide. Do you need it? People say, I got an EAP, I don't need it. I'm saying, I don't think that's enough. Is it cost? You'd be surprised. We always say, give us your budget, we'll give you a program. There's the ultimate, there's others. Time, how much does it time? That's variable, depending on your organization. And the payoff's worth it. And the question is, I hate to say it, but a lot of leaders don't care. They care only about what's happening in the office and they don't care about anything else. So, this is Al's contact on the neural polarization. Please call 616-632-7577. That's 616-632. And then if you want a PowerPoint, there you go. Thanks for listening.